Well, good afternoon and welcome to It's Learning. My name is Brian Gallagher. I'm your presenter or trainer for today. I'm going to let folks kind of come in the next minute or so before we really get into anything. But like I said, welcome. My name is Brian Gallagher. I am your presenter for today. Today, our topic is inclusive learning environment on It's Learning. We're going to look into that a little bit and take a look at some of the features that It's Learning offers. I'm going to show you some things and tell you some things, obviously, as well. A little bit about me before we go too deep into the platform, also to let people just come in. Um, I was a teacher. I taught middle school history and geography in the U.S. And specifically, I worked for a small school that focused on students with language-based learning difficulties, so dyslexia, dysgraphia, um, and whatnot, and so studied this area a lot, and worked very intensely with those students for a number of years, teaching them, like I said, geography and history, and the more I learned about this topic, and the more I learned about this, is I realized, this isn't just for the labeled students. This is for all learners, and going really to the topic of um, just allowing all humans to gain access to the material. And that is creating an inclusive learning environment. And that's really what we're focusing on today, what we're talking about today. So for the folks that just trickled in, again, my name's Brian Gallagher. I'm the presenter or the trainer for today. And I was just kind of filling the space to allow you all to come on in. Um, Today we're going to be talking about, like I said, an inclusive learning environment and what that means, but also more importantly, how we can use its learning tools to create or to build an inclusive learning environment. Before we go into its learning at all, I want to do a quick little poll with you all. Curious kind of who's here. Obviously, you're not going to introduce yourself, but there's just a couple of little quick questions. The first one is, are you already a user of It's Learning, or do you already have an account, is what I'm really asking, or have you ever used It's Learning? Maybe different ways we could phrase this same question. So just to know kind of who's here and what I need to show or what I don't need to show, that kind of helps me a little bit. Um, so some of the participants have voted. Great. I'm going to give you all another couple of seconds just to pipe in and say, are you an It's Learning user, or are you already an It's Learning user? Great. Everybody who responded said yes, they are an It's Learning user. Super. That means I hope that we have a common vocabulary in some things, but if not, of course, I'll clarify things and whatnot. My next poll question is, if you are an It's Using learner, which is everybody so far, what kind of role do you have with It's Learning? So are you a teacher or a staff member maybe? And you can select multiple boxes here. Are you an administrator or maybe a system administrator? Are you a parent, or are you a student, or are you an other? I don't know what an other could be, I guess, a guest, but anyhow. And I know every customer defines these roles a little bit differently. So in my head, an administrator or a system administrator could also be a teacher, but an administrator or system administrator can maybe change passwords or can see the system back end side of things, whereas a teacher or a staff member is using It's Learning with the planner and with the assignment tool and whatnot, really in the classroom. Parent and I think student are a little self-explanatory. I don't need to go there. I'm going to give another second or two on the vote. Looks like we're pretty well split, which is great. I'm hoping that some people are multiple of these, which I think they are as well. So I'm going to end and share the results. And as you see, definitely some teachers and staff, and definitely some administrators, a student and an other. You're all welcomed, of course, and I'm excited that you're all here. I have one more poll question. And the question is, how familiar are you with the accessibility features with It's Learning? So not at all, somewhat, or very much. I realize there probably should be a fourth option, which is like more than somewhat, but less than very much. But sorry, it's not a perfect poll. It's also not my strength there. But just to get a sense if people know what's going on here. And I'm seeing a lot of somewhats, a couple very much. Great. So again, I'll share those results. We're done with the polls. You all did a great job. Thank you so much. So I'm going to close the polls. I've got this PowerPoint for us that we're going to go through and look through, and then we're going to jump into It's Learning and try some things out and look at some things. When I do these presentations, I say, though, at any time, please put a chat in the chat box or ask a question in the question area. I always have kind of one eye on the chat or the question area. I'm always kind of looking to see, maybe I didn't explain something clearly, or maybe you have just a question about something. That's really what I'm interested in. And the plan today is we'll do the content of the webinar, and then I will turn off the recording, and then I can stick around for another couple of minutes and answer any questions, either with this topic or also other topics. But as I go, if you're posting questions, I might add your answer in there because, like I said, I've always got one eye on the question area. Anyhow, I'm going to put away the camera to make the screen a little bit bigger for us. And we're going to, like I said, we'll start with this PowerPoint and then we'll go into its learning and look at some things. But like I said, anytime questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat boxes or in the question box in the go-to webinar software. So it's learning, inclusive environment. As I said, I'm Brian Gallagher. The description for this webinar was the accessibility features in its learning can help you create an inclusive learning environment for all of your, I probably should say, learners, not students. And this webinar will take a look at the options available in its learning. So that's our plan today, is we're going to look at accessibility in its learning. And when we, from a software company side of things, look at accessibility, often we're looking at what's called the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG. And we're trying to reach certain WCAG thresholds, if you will. And the four kind of areas, this is kind of the international standard of is the thing on the internet accessible? And there's four areas that they look at. One is it perceivable? Is it operable? Is it understandable? And is it robust? I'm not going to get into those definitions. That's not what this webinar is about. It's just to say there is some theory behind what we're talking about today, and also what we do when we're developing the product. And when we're developing, we're looking to achieve these goals, these guidelines rather. If you want some more information about it, the link is right down there. And it's pretty easy to access. Also, if you just searched in the internet for WCAG, you'd find it. So kind of a little bit of a background, what is assistive technology is often a question that I get. And assistive technology, these are some examples of assistive technology. So a screen reader software, that's not what its learning is. So screen reader software is a software that a student or a learner or a teacher or a staff member has to literally read the screen in front of them. And it would go through and it would literally, like on this slide, it would obviously read the text here, but it would also read all these little buttons from Microsoft that we're not going to talk about. And it would read what they are. And I, as a user, could navigate through the page that's in front of me and hear audibly what's going on there. Other types of tools, there's talk-to-type type tools. Some examples are TalkBack and VoiceOver. A lot of our cell phones have these built in, where I might speak into the phone or speak into the computer, and it would type the text for me. There's obviously magnifiers and the ability to change contrast that helps different users use the software. There's visual alerts, which is actually something I use. Whenever I get an email, my screen flashes. I hope it doesn't flash during the webinar. And then you can also use the keyboard for navigation. These are just some very short list of some of the examples of assistive technology that is out there. And then our software, of course, is a web-based software. You all know that. And we want to play well with screen readers. For example, we want you to be able to use a magnifier or to be able to magnify the screen while you're using our software. Change the contrast, things like that. We can use the keyboard to navigate through the software. So this is how we're, as a software company, we're kind of interfacing with this assistive technology. So here are some of the examples of the It's Learning tools that we're going to look at in the next little bit here. And we're going to start with the accessibility checker, which I'm going to show you how to turn it on, and then I'm going to show you what it is and how it works. We're going to play with the keyboard a little bit and navigate around. And then we'll talk a little bit about some of the theory, if you will, behind using a to-do list and working with dates and why that's so important. Also labeling photos, videos, audio recordings within the rich text editor. This clean cut and paste option in the rich text editor, we'll talk about that. And then we'll look at the immersive reader. And just really quickly, I starred there, not for the blind. The immersive reader is not a screen reader. I'll go back a slide here. This first one is a screen reader. So the immersive reader is not a screen reader, and we'll look at the immersive reader. We'll talk about what's great about it, but it's not supposed to be a screen reader. And then obviously we can also scale very easily, and we'll play around with that and look at that. So these are some of the tools that we're going to look at. I'm going to come back to this slide a couple times during my presentation just so I keep on track. But so I make sure I touch each point. And the first point, the accessibility checker, we're going to start there. you need to have it turned on, and system administrators can turn it on. I'm going to show you how you do that. I'm also going to show you what it is and how it works and what it does. But it's the only thing that a system administrator needs to turn on. Some of the things we're also going to look at, you as an individual user can turn on in your user settings, and we're going to look at that as well. I don't see it on my list, but we're going to look at, for example, turning on the contrast, the high contrast ability. So let's pop over to its learning. And so just for this first element, I'm actually logged in as an administrator, as a system administrator. For those of you who are not system administrators on your site, you've never seen this. You're looking on the back end. Welcome. This is just my demo site, but we're logged in as a system administrator. And to turn on the accessibility, sorry, I forgot what it's called, the accessibility checker, right? Sorry. We have to find it, and it's hidden a little bit in the edit global settings area. Like I said, this is the only tool that we're looking in the system admin side. Otherwise, everything's going to be as a teacher. But in the edit global settings area, in this features and security area, you can scroll down a little bit, and scrolling down a little bit more, and here it is. It's called the Enable the Accessibility plugin in the Rich Text Editor. I'm going to start by turning it off, and then I'll turn it back on. I'll show you what it looks like. So I'm saving my settings here, and I'm going to hop over. I'm in a teacher account over here. Ann Engelman is in my teacher account, and we'll go into one of her courses, and you know some of this stuff. And what we're talking about is in the Rich Text Editor, which I've got, of course, in my planner area. Here's the rich text editor up here. It's also in the page element. When I create a new text block, a new content block, this is the rich content, or rich, I always call it rich text. It's rich content editor. It's the same thing. So when I'm in the rich content editor, there's obviously a bunch of buttons. Oh, it's still on. This is the accessibility checker right here. Even though I just turned it off on the other side, I didn't reload this page. So let's not break it. So let's go back to the admin page, and we'll turn it back on and save it, and then I'll reload everything and make it all work fine. So we'll turn it back on, and then I'll show you what it does. So it's back on. I'm going to go ahead and reload this website as the teacher. And if you don't reload stuff, it doesn't refresh. Okay, so we'll go into the page element, and like I said, we can do it in the page, or we can do it up here in the description field. We'll do it in the description field. So I click on the little pencil up here, and this little button here, I'm going to make it really big for us so we can see it. Oop, that's a little too big. Here it is, this little button with a little humanoid with a circle around them. When I press that button, it's this pop-up becomes, and it says accessibility checker. This document doesn't contain any accessibility issues. Great, we passed the test. I'm going to make it normal sized again. So essentially what it's doing is this tool here is reading through what I have embedded here, and it's trying to see, is it accessible or not. So for example, if I were to add a photo here, so I'll add some sort of photo from my computer. I'm sure I've got something, probably has nothing to do with biology, but something we can use. Here's a little image of a cooking pot. Sure, we'll use that. It's not really relevant to what we're talking about. Make it a little bit smaller so we can see it. And I'll hit save, so it's there. Yep. Okay, there it is. Great. So we'll use the accessibility checker now and see what happens. So I hit it again, and it says it still doesn't contain accessibility issues. Of course, I know that may or may not be true because there's no description field on this one. But anyhow, what this is really good for is if you visit an external website and you cut and paste a bunch of text. And in the external text, there's a bunch of different formatting or font issues and formatting issues. This will highlight that for you and tell you, hey, that's a problem. And what it's a problem for are these screen readers that I mentioned earlier. So a screen reader, of course, is additional software that a user might use to read the screen. And as it's reading the screen, it would come across all these different formatting issues, and the screen reader might just get confused. So the accessibility checker is right there, and you can use that. Going a little bit deeper into the rich text editor, the next thing that I wanted to highlight, actually, let me go in order on my PowerPoint, navigation with keyboard. Yep. So we'll go navigation with keyboard. So navigating with keyboard, you, of course, can't see my keys, but I can tell you what I'm doing. So I'm going to hit, so this is, of course, my mouse. I'm going to put the mouse over on the side here and just leave it there. But when I use the tab key on my keyboard, and the shift tab, you can see see, I'm going to use the mouse again. You see the little box here moves from here to over here by add. So again, mouse stays there. I'm hitting tab and I'm jumping over to the add button here. And I hit the space bar. Oops, let me just go back so you can see that because I did it really quickly. So again, tab key over to add, hit the space bar, which selects the field. And now, of course, I could select my learning objectives. I'm not going to go into learning objectives because there's a lot in there that you could do, but I'm selecting these different learning objectives using now the tab and the space bar. To go back up, I'm shift tabbing, and then I go back up, and you can see all these different things. So I'm going to zip on down here with tab, 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 tab to get over to the save button. There it is, save button. And again, hit the space bar to activate it. And now I've just added those learning objectives just by using the keyboard. So I'm going to hit tab again, find out where I am. There I am. I can move this element around, drag and drop, but I'm going to go ahead and select the element, hit the space bar. Yep, actually I hit return, and it opened it up. And now I'm in the page element. And of course I can, change the title by, change the title by shift clicking back a couple more times. There I am, and activating that with the return button. And now I can, add words here to the spelled correctly to the button there. So I'm just using the keyboard here to navigate. As a user who doesn't use the keyboard to navigate often, it's a little tricky for me and I have to really think about it. But for users who use the keyboard to navigate normally when they're using a computer or any sort of device, these buttons come regular or come very comfortably to them. Obviously I'm struggling, but when you know the code, you can do it really easily. So this is what navigation with the keyboard is all about. And like I said, it works really all over in itslearning. We're going to go back to using the mouse, I realize, but we're gonna open up our course here. And now I'll just use the keyboard to activate the plan for today, or take a look at the plan for today. So I'm hitting the tab button, and it's zipping around through the menu at the very top. You see it over here by library now. So I'll keep tabbing around, tab, 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 till I get to where I want to go, which is I want to open up the plan for today. There it is. And oops, misclicked there. I'm just using the arrow keys to go up and down here, but I'm just hitting return, and now I'm in the planner. And I can now see, of course, what we're doing. The same thing, of course, works for students. We don't need to jump over to the student view to see that. That's how navigating with the keyboard works. Like I said, practice makes perfect on that one. So the next thing is the to-do list and working with dates. So as you know, when you create an assignment, or when you create a test or a task, I'll create a new assignment here. We'll just call it a demo assignment. Doesn't matter what it is. We can select the deadline over here, or the what I call to put it on the to-do list. So the deadline, the due date, and we'll say it's today at at 16 or 1700. We'll just say. So I can do that. That's great. I've set everything up, and then as you know, I hit create assignment. You know all these things, and then as a student, so I can of course hop over here into the student view. I'll now see my course as a student, and what do I see is on the to-do list or on the task list, I see this assignment and I see when it's due. It's due today, and this helps, of course, students with any sort of cognitive challenges, who struggle and need the structure that we can put in place. And of course, they can see that here. They can also see that, well, I won't be in the student view. I'll be in the teacher view. It doesn't much matter here. When I go over to the calendar. And I do need to be in the student view to see that there. I'll hop over to the student view here in this other screen, just so we can see what that looks like. Hope I've got the right username there and password. We'll hop on the calendar there, and we see now, when I look at the week view, this little circle up here, and that circle means that there's an assignment, and the assignment, of course, is due today at 5 o'clock. We know that. But this structure that we've added here with a date really helps, or I should have said Elizabeth Brown as a student view, but the structure really helps students who may struggle with organization, and that's one of the reasons why we highlighted just this ability to add this structure here helps students to really know what's going on, and obviously we can do that in the courses by first off using dates in our plans. So this plan is active from the 20th to 24th, and then obviously also in the assignment. The other thing, of course, that I can use as a teacher is I can add events on the calendar, which then, of course, connect the plans to the active times. We'll make this just from 8 to 9 tomorrow, for example, and then the plan will also be connected to that calendar entry, and that just helps the students to know what's what. The student could just click on this little plan icon and they see exactly what we're doing. Or of course, if I switch over to my student view with Elizabeth Brown and I reload her calendar, we will see now that she's got this calendar entry here, and she clicks on the plan and she sees, oh, here's what's going on. And it's all organized by date. And that helps students who might struggle with being organized. So it's our to-do list and working with dates. Our next thing is labeling photos, videos, and audio recordings in the rich text editor. And so the reason we do this is primarily for screen readers to be able to read what's going on. Let me show you what I mean here. So we're going to go back into this same plan that we've been working on in our biology class. And we're going to have created a page element there. Maybe it's going to load. There we go. So it's this page element that we've looked at before. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new content block, a rich content block. And I'm going to add a photo here. I'm going to use the same photo I did before, that cooking photo. Here it is. Pop that right in there. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so we can see it on the screen. And what I can do is when I right click on it, I can see the image properties. Or if you're using a laptop, sometimes you have to click with 2 fingers. I can click on the image properties. I think you can also hold down the option button, or no, sorry, the control button. And that brings it up to on a Mac. Sorry, I don't speak PC. But image properties are there. And in the image properties, I can enter this alternative text. So this is a image of, sorry, spelled correctly, of a pot cooking, red pot cooking. Sure. So I've added a description there. And what this will do is any user who's using a screen reader, when their screen reader comes across this picture, this image here, the screen reader will say what it is. If the description wasn't there, the screen reader wouldn't know what it was. So it might just say there's an image, and you wouldn't, as a user, know what that image is or what that image is all about. So we're just making the platform more accessible. Same thing we can do if we're creating an audio or a video recording. You probably know these tools. There's a little audio recording, the video recording. I'll go ahead and make an audio recording now just really quickly. I think this is a great tool, especially when you're working with littler students. You can say the assignment is that the students should read a poem aloud or something in its learning. And so I hit record there. The countdown went. The recording has to be a minimum of 11 seconds long. It can be a maximum of 20 minutes long. At 11 seconds, I'll stop chatting. There we go. Stop. And what I mean here, it'll take a second to upload, is there's a field that we're going to see right over here on the left-hand side. It auto-generates the date and timestamp, but I could say this is Brian recording the poem for the assignment, or something like that. It helps if I spell it correctly. And I hit save. And again, you and I don't see that, but the description is there when a screen reader hits this. It says this is an audio recording, and I can activate it. The screen reader will say that, and then the other thing is it will say what the audio recording is based on the description. So that's the way the audio recorder works. The video recorder works exactly the same way. You add the description after you've done the event. As you all know, this same rich text editor, this rich content, these tools here, especially the second row, we also find them in the assignment tool, in various parts of the test tool, as I said, in the description field of the planner. It's really all over. And so we can use this to do a lot of different things for our students. The clean cut and paste in the rich text editor. So here we are going to get I'm going to find something on the internet here. This is I often train in German, so I'm sorry to say this website here is in German. It's about Klimawandel is climate change. So I'm just going to copy and paste all this text here. And we see here there's a bunch of different fonts, a bunch of different colors. It looks real pretty, but we're going to hop back into itslearning, and I'm going to create a new content block, rich content. And as you know, I can just cut and paste it. So paste it there, bam. And as we see all the different fonts are there. And it looks fine for someone who is a visual reader. But this could give some challenges for students who are using screen readers, or also students who just can't see the differences between these fonts here, or the colorblind or whatnot. So what I could also do, actually, I'm curious what happens if I click the accessibility checker on that text, just to see what happens. Accessibility checker says, wait a second here, Brian. So some of the elements must have sufficient color contrast. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And I'll go to the next one. There's a second problem here. Again, they're highlighting the color contrast is not so great here. So the way to get around this, I'm going to cancel this one, and I'll create another rich content box. And I'm going to zoom us in again, but I'm going to zoom us in on these buttons right over here on the right-hand side. So I'll zoom us in. make them big. So we've got this button here, which when I click on it, it just says hit, in the Mac terms, Command V to paste the text. We've already done that. We know what happens there. This next one is called clean copy paste. And it says add the shift button to paste. So if I hit Command Shift Paste on the Mac, on the PC, it's a little bit different. The text comes in without all of the formatting. And then, of course, I could just save that, hit OK, and this is what it looks like. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller again so we can compare the two. There was a third option there, which many of you probably saw. This one with a little W on it. This is if I'm importing something from Word. It'll change the formatting from Word. So all three of these are great tools to use when we're copying and pasting text from somewhere else on the computer, on the internet, to bring it into itslearning to get rid of all the formatting. The other thing I can highlight, and the way I can show you this, is if I click the edit button on this text box, we see, of course, all this great bright lettering. The other thing that we see is down here at the bottom, there's all these different, essentially they're buttons. And what they do is they describe to the computer what's going on here with the fonting, with the different headings and all that stuff. In comparison, the one that I did the plain text for, it just has the body and the P. This is just normal font, just normal, no headings, none of that stuff. The copying and pasting, you copy over the formatting that's with the other site, or in this case, the website. And that, again, can make some challenges for users. Good, back to our PowerPoint. The Immersive Reader, one of my favorite tools, especially with younger users. I'm going to pop over and show you that, and then we'll talk a little bit more about scaling, and then we'll be done. So the Immersive Reader you find in a couple of tools. The one that I like to use it in is in the note, but you can also use it in the assignment. And we'll show it in the note. It's a little bit easier to see without going over the student side. So in the note, what you can do is, of course, you can create a note. We'll just call it demo text. We'll use that same text we already have copied with the shift button. We'll paste it there and hit OK, save. There, I've made the note. What the Immersive Reader is up here on the right-hand side. It says Immersive Reader. I'm going to click on that in just a second. And what this Immersive Reader will do is it's going to read this text for us. Of course, this text is all in German. I should have thought of that a little bit better. Let me change this. Let me edit this text, get rid of the German. And so we'll say, maybe it's a vocabulary list for global warming. So we'll say vocabulary, or wait, we're in cells right now. I'm sorry. Cell vocabulary list. Of course, I don't have any cell words in my head right now. But we'll just say microscope, and cell wall, and membrane, and one more, nucleus. Okay, great. Got some words on there. They're all in English. Good. So when I hit the Immersive Reader, it will read all this stuff for us. I have my headphones in right now, so you won't hear it. But actually, I think I can take them out and we can hear it. Let me turn the headphones off. Great. So Immersive Reader. I hope you still hear me. And when I hit play down here, it'll read the language or the words for us.
Microscope, cell wall, membrane, nucleus.
Of course, there's no punctuation there, but it just reads it for us, and that's what it does. So I hit play,
microscope, cell,
and it reads it for us. When I click on one word, I can also hear the individual word.
Microscope.
And often, but not always, see a photo or an image there. And as you all know, what I did there is I just wrote these 5 words down. I didn't come up with these. This is a cell. This is also a cell. This is also a cell. That's a great way. Cell wall, of course, was supposed to be connected, but that's okay. So sometimes these words are great. Sometimes the words are, or the pictures are not the best. And the way this Immersive Reader works is it just reads it for us. There's some settings here. I can change the speed of the reading. I can change the voice selection. I can also change the text size. I can increase or decrease the spacing. The fonts we can change. The Comic Sans font was actually developed for students with learning reading difficulties. I can also change the background color. One of my cousins actually can only read when the background color is not white. I think he actually reads best with this color on the background. So it helps him with the focusing. You can also turn on the grammatic options. I can turn on the syllables, or I can do the nouns. They're all nouns in this case, or the verbs and whatnot. So you can turn these parts of speech on. The other thing that's here is this line focus, which I really love. Of course, we only have one line here, but if I had a whole bunch of text, a big paragraph of text, this would focus it on just one line. And of course, I get rid of this, and then the student can just read it on themselves. They don't even need to press play. They can read the words and then forward here, down arrow to the next block of line or of text. The picture dictionary, which is what I've just showed you, you can turn on and off. And then you can also translate it into many, many other languages. And this is a computer translation, so it's not always perfect, but of course it's good enough to get the basics there. And you can translate either by the word or by the document. So this tool, the Immersive Reader, though, is in a couple of different places on itslearning, and you can use it to help you to, as a user or as often as a learner, to work your way through the text that's there. So the last part of the PowerPoint is just scaling easily for magnifiers. I've been doing that this whole presentation. Every time the screen gets big for you, we're using the scaling functions. That was a little too big. And what I'm using is just on the keyboard, I'm hitting the command plus and minus. But also, as you see in my browser, I'm using Chrome. There's also the plus and minus up here. And essentially, if itslearning didn't scale well, it would look funny. And you would notice the pictures running into each other, for example. So these two images might clash or crash into each other in the middle of the screen as you get it bigger or smaller. But what we have done is developed the software in a way that it scales well. Good. So that was really it. So we just wanted to go through some of the itslearning tools that are out there. As you know, I've kept an eye on the questions area and the comments area, and I've embedded a couple of the answers to your questions in what I've described. I'm going to pop this last slide up here where you can see the itslearning, some more resources essentially. There's the itslearning accessibility statement, which you can read, and of course we've also got some blogs up there where we talk a little bit more in depth about some of this stuff to help you as our users to really be better equipped to use our software on your school, because we want all learners, of course, to use the software. We want all learners to feel like they are included and are able to access their learning. So at this point, I'm going to turn the camera back on, mostly just to smile and say I'm still here and to wish you all a wonderful day. And then in a second, I'll turn the camera off turn the recording off, and I can answer any of the questions there are. But like I said, thank you all for being a part of this webinar and for using itslearning. And I hope that you learned something here. And yeah, great. So thank you so much. And I'm going to turn off the recording now.